Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast. I'm your host and narrator Art, and today we will be talking with author Juno Jakob, who has just written a brand new book called The Halloween Book, and it will be released tomorrow on Halloween Day. It's a young adult novella, and it's about these children who live in Port Hampton, and the town's reverend has decided that Halloween is canceled. So the children take matters into their own hands to protect the holiday they love so dearly. It's a charming, wonderful story, and if you are fans of Ray Bradbury and his book, The Halloween Tree, this is a book that pays tribute to that. How has your reading been this week? I've finally finished Wuthering Heights, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I reread it. I think I like it a bit more than when I first read it. I'll talk more about that in a video I have coming out here in the next week or two on my thoughts. But here, just to give you a general idea, I did indeed like it more than when I first read it. But it really is just a book full of unpleasant characters that just seem to behave unpleasantly to each other. And I'm not sure it's the book for me, to be honest. I don't know. I'm going to spend some time thinking about it and try to formulate some thoughts on it. But is it a worthwhile read? Yes. Yes, it is. Is it going to be one of my favorites? No, I don't think so. Anyway, I'll talk more about that coming up. I've been doing a lot of reading for the Reading Challenge Victober, where you read as much Victorian literature as you can in the month of October. And I've really enjoyed that. I've been reading The Dead Secret by Wilkie Collins, and I am loving that book. That has been a blast to read. So I want to thank you, the booktube community, because that's the one you voted on for me to read. And it's so far been, I think, my favorite read this month. I'm about halfway through right now. I don't think I'll get it finished by the end of October, but I can't wait to get it all finished. It's just a lot of fun. It's a good read. It tells the story of the lady of a manor, of a house. She dies with some kind of secret, and that's not a spoiler. That all happens within the first couple of chapters of the book. And as she's dying, she has her maid write down a confession of some kind, but it hasn't yet been revealed. The letter has not yet been found, and people are trying to find it, and it's really fun. So I'm enjoying that book, The Dead Secret by Wilkie Collins, and it has just a touch of supernatural about it. You know, just a touch of ghostliness. There's some gothic elements. It's a perfect read for this time of year. So I'd recommend that if you like Victorian literature. Well, I don't have a story today. I'll be reading some stories starting next week that I had hoped to get to this month for Halloween, but it just didn't happen. My schedule went completely bonkers this month. So I appreciate you all hanging in there with me as I try to manage this podcast. But so coming up, we'll have a couple of great spooky stories I'm going to read in November. And then I'm hoping to do a mystery genre roundtable discussion with a couple of guests from another podcast. So that'll be coming up about mid-November or so. So you can keep a listen for that. And then I want to, based on what I did last week with the Simply to Die For podcast, I want to do an occasional podcast spotlight where myself and a podcaster, especially a podcaster who does stories or has a book podcast or a fiction podcast, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about stories and about your podcast. So if you're interested in having a discussion about that, go ahead and reach out to me to Bookshelf Odyssey podcast at gmail.com, and I'll take a listen to your podcast and see if it would be a good fit for an upcoming episode. But I really enjoyed sitting down with CJ Coral and Joe Morales last week. I want to do more of that, where podcast creators, where we just get together to talk about the power of stories and what that has meant in our life. That's just been a fun discussion. So I want to put the call out for that, as well as if you are an author and you have a book coming out, even if you don't, and you just want to come on and talk, reach out to me. I'd love to hear you and read your stories and see if this would be a good fit for you. Okay, well, that's enough for me. We're going to England today to talk with Juno Jakob, author of the upcoming novella, The Halloween Book. I'm talking today with author Juno Jakob. He has just recently published a book called The Halloween Book. And so, Juno Jakob, welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's starting to turn fall weather where I live. I don't know about where you're at.
Yeah, it's cold. It's getting cold, windy, lots of leaves on the floor.
Yeah, and so this book, the Halloween book, was just a perfect read for this time of year, as Halloween's coming, and we're looking forward to all the celebrations that bring. So I came across Juno's work, I think earlier this year. A mutual acquaintance of ours, Sam Weller, had shared on his Twitter about a book he was working on. And I saw that Juno's work had a lot to do with Halloween and the spooky side of things. And we share a love of Ray Bradbury. And so today, this is our special Halloween episode. I thought, Juno, I thought it would be great to have you on just to talk about your book and a little bit of Halloween. But of course, we have a mutual love for the writer Ray Bradbury.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can't think of any other writer, with the exception maybe of maybe a couple sort of like Steinbeck and Charles Schultz and weirdly Hunter S. Thompson. But Bradbury is sort of the influence that runs strongest through my stuff. And even not just his work, but he himself. I've watched a lot of his lectures and things like that.
I was going to ask, did you ever have a chance to meet him in person?
No, I didn't. I was in my final year of university when he passed away.
Sure.
It was devastating.
Oh yeah. Well, I want to talk about our introduction to Ray Bradbury. How did you first find him and find his books and his work?
Finding Bradbury was a complete fluke. Where I used to live, well, you'd know that you've read the book. So in the book, there's a little town called Porthampton. Porthampton is based on the little town I grew up in that's called Portchester. If you ever go on Google Maps, have a look at the layout of Portchester and you'll see it's almost exactly the same as Porthampton. It's right on the south coast of England, right on the coast. And they used to have a video store. And I remember going into the video store all the time from about the ages of 4 upwards. And there was one video that always caught my attention, and it was like a big chunky like clamshell video case, bright orange, and it was called The Halloween Tree. And I remember the cover is all the characters running with a pumpkin, and there's a guy in a cape sort of floating over them. It was just mesmerizing. And every Halloween, not even every Halloween, every time I went to the video store, I'd rent it. No matter how many times I'd seen it, I'd always rent that tape. And I remember I loved that film. I still love it. I watch it every Halloween. You know, the subject matter of like, it's kids, it's Halloween. There's this wonderful narrator narrating the whole story, who I didn't know at the time, but that voice during the narration really stuck with me and really made me just want to hear more from him.
Yeah.
And I would listen to the narration all the time, over and over. And eventually I wore the tape out, and the video store had to buy a new one. But
that's amazing.
I remember listening to that voice, and it wasn't until a few viewings in I didn't realize the guy had wrote the film and the narrator were the same person. So I took note of the name, Ray Bradbury, and I kept that name safe in the back of my mind for many years. And I always remembered it. And then 2 books came along. When I was in my first year of university, I was in a bookstore I went to university in a place called Bournemouth, about hour and a half away. And I was in a bookstore and I was looking at the books, and then suddenly I looked on the shelf and I saw that name, Ray Bradbury. So I instantly grabbed the book. I looked at it, and just by chance, it was a paperback of The Halloween Tree. So I bought it straight away. I think it was like £1, so like $1.
Yeah.
And I rushed home and I devoured it in a night in my little dormitory room, and I loved it. I literally felt like I had found a kind grandfather who had written a story just for me. It was everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah, that's neat. And it was kind of like just a callback to your childhood, just jumping right out at you.
Yeah, it was great. And it was just The Halloween Tree. And then it's kind of sad, but there's not many of Ray Bradbury's books are in print in England.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably I'm looking at my bookshelf now. I think there's only about 8 or 9.
Oh.
There's really not that many of his books in print. You can still get them. This morning I had a signed Dandelion Wine delivered.
Oh, nice.
So I've got a few signed books, which are like treasures. If there's ever a fire in the house, that's what I'm grabbing.
You're grabbing those, yeah.
But then after I read the Halloween book, the Halloween Tree, sorry, I started trying to find more Bradbury books. And I'm not really one for buying books online. Like, I'd rather go to a bookstore and buy them.
Yeah.
So it took me a little while, but this one book I found very early on in my quest for Bradbury was a little book called Summer Morning, Summer Night.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really small paperback. It's got about 25 little vignettes and short stories in it. Really a beautiful book. It's all set in Greentown, which is where Bradbury sets a lot. It's based on his own hometown, Waukegan, Illinois. And it's just little snippets of people in the town. And one of them was a story called Miss Bidwell. And it's about an old lady who lives in this house, and she doesn't have any stairs going up to her porch. Her whole porch is encased with railings. It was a beautiful story, and that's the story that really made me realize that Ray isn't just a horror writer, or he doesn't just write about Martians and Mars and stuff. He writes about beautiful small town America. And kindness and these little snippets of life among all these Greentown people. And that's the book that led me on to, Dandelion Wine, Farewell Summer, and Something Wicked.
Yeah. My first one was the Martian Chronicles. So, I kind of hit his big one first. But I remember, I lived in the library practically. And I was a teenager, just kind of going through one of those dark times of your life, I suppose. And, there's a lot of things that were going on in family life and stuff that were just making things difficult. And so I found this book, and I thought, I'd been wanting to read more science fiction. I'd read all that the young adult section really had to offer as far as the library went. And so I'm wandering around and I see this book, spaceships on the front, rockets on the front, and I don't know, I just thought, boy, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll try it out. I think I've heard of this guy before, who this Ray Bradbury is. And so yeah, I was mid-teens, I think, early teens, about 14, 15, and I really think just about the right age to pick him up. And that's the perfect age. Yeah,
just right at the perfect age.
Yeah. I was really enjoying it. And then the ending of the Martian Chronicles just kind of blew me away. And I've often said this is one of those books that you read and that, I'm not going to be the same person after this. Something changed in me from reading that. And boy, I was excited to see he had, our library had quite a few, and I could find some there. I started picking some up in thrift stores and anywhere I could get my hands on books. I'd been reading Bradbury up through, into college, young adult. I was married and started having kids, and I still hadn't read everything he'd written. And so then as a new parent, I can't remember actually if it was after my firstborn or my second came along. I read Something Wicked This Way Comes, and I was almost in tears over that book because, that book would have appealed to me as a kid, but as a father, that story really just captured my, all the insecurities I had of parenting. I saw it in what's the dad's name now?
Charles Holloway.
Yeah, Charles. Yeah. I think he has some insecurities about parenting and thinking maybe he's too old, or, that whole theme of growing old and being disconnected, as a parent, that really just caught me. And I thought, well, I thought I had read all of Bradbury's, powerful stories already. And yet here's one that surprised me.
I know. I find Bradbury is genius at using the same metaphor or same theme, but it hits people on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Like the theme can be adapted to anyone.
Yeah.
And it resonates with people who read his work. I don't know many people. First of all, I don't know many people who know who Bradbury is. He's not as big over here as I guess he is in your country.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
I mean, he's taught in schools and stuff over in your end, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, no chance here.
Oh, sure.
I don't know many casual Bradbury fans.
Mm-hmm.
They're either they absolutely adore him or they've never read him. And the people who haven't read him, I give them books.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my wife actually taught Fahrenheit 451 when she was a student teacher. She has her teaching degree. So when she was a student teacher, she taught that in a lit class. I think it was that one.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a moment I loved. If I had read Fahrenheit when I was in school, I think my Bradbury obsession would have exploded.
Yes.
I was lucky enough though. I don't know what you guys read in America, but in secondary school over here in England, we all read Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men.
Mm.
That's the big book we learn in English. And I think Great Expectations by Dickens.
Mm-hmm.
Who's from where I'm from, actually, believe it or not.
Oh, Dickens is, huh?
Yeah, his house is 15 minutes from my house.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Dickens is one of my all-time favorite writers. And I always joke that every podcast episode I do, it's just a veiled attempt to end up talking about Dickens. So here we are. Back.
Yeah, back again.
Back to it. Yep. My listeners are going to get tired of it, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, she taught Fahrenheit 451, and then she taught Tale of Two Cities. There we go. So what was fun about that one is we would read it together and then talk about it, and then she'd kind of take some of what we talked about and bring it into her classroom and teach the kids. And I'm like, I wish I was in high school again. This is fun.
I know. It'd be great to
discover
all these books for the first time.
Yeah. I had a collection of audio short stories of Bradbury that I was playing a couple for my kids a few years back. My boys, we were going on a camping trip, so we had some drive time, and I popped it in, and one of my sons really liked the story of the Velt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one really kind of tapped into his dark sense of humor, I think. It's
a great story.
Yeah, when the story ends, and one of the kids asks, would you like some tea? And my son just starts laughing, and I said, I don't think that was supposed to be funny. But
there's also, like, as well as Bradbury's work, which is incredible,
mm-hmm.
and he's done so much, in different genres, styles, essays, nonfiction, fiction, scripts, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
There's also, I mean, I don't know how far you've delved into it, but the amount of lectures and things like this he's done as well. There's a lecture, you can go look at it on YouTube. It's astounding. I think it's from about 2002. It's Bradbury talking to a university class, and it's just amazing. The way he talks about writing and life and being great is incredible. He has such a youthful zest for life. That sounds cliche, but he really does. Even in his 80s, after he had his stroke, he's still excited.
Well, I get that. I think I read, I'm going to get the quote not exactly right, but he had said that every morning he wakes up and like explodes out of bed and is reassembled at his typewriter, and and he just goes to work. And me, I got to drag myself out of bed. And
see, I'm a bit of a hipster. I all my stuff's written on a typewriter.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I write everything on a typewriter, which I have about 16 of them.
Wow. I
have a lot of typewriters. I find I started typing on a typewriter because Bradbury always used a typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was good enough for him. It's good enough for me.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and I love that story that Fahrenheit 451 was written at a library.
Yeah, on coin-operated typewriters.
Coin-operated typewriters, right. Yeah, he's down in the basement pounding away, go upstairs, get inspiration, come back down.
That's how you need to write books is,
sure.
You read people like George Orwell who are like, I can't remember the exact quote, but he goes on about, if you're going to write a book, you must have some pain and anguish and demons. And then it's like, no, you should write because you love writing and you have this great idea that you can't wait to share with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, writing is not serious. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And you can, it's not like, writing is not like making a film where you have 10 million to make. You have to do this, you have to hire actors, you have to hire sets, you have to hire cameras, all this sort of stuff. Like my background's in film. That's what I studied at university and stuff. And I had about 10 years ago, I had a couple of films released. But I found fiction writing is the most satisfying way to tell a story. It's just you, typewriter, laptop, computer, whatever. And you have no budget, you have no limitations, you can write anything you want. It's liberating. It's exciting.
There's a couple podcasts I listen to that, talk about movies, and a couple of TV shows I like. And they're always talking about how, originally the screenwriter wanted this, but we just couldn't make it happen. So we had to change it and stuff like that. And when you write a book or a short story, I mean, again, as cliche as it sounds, your imagination is the limit.
Exactly. You can write anything you want.
And then you come across a guy like Bradbury and you're like, I don't know if we can even film this. What is this?
Exactly.
Yeah. Is the Halloween tree then your favorite Bradbury, or?
No, my favorite, it is very up there. I mean, it's like picking your favorite aunts, nephews and nieces.
Yeah, I know.
But I can give you a top 5.
Sure. Let's do it.
My absolute favorite is Dandelion Wine. It's a beautiful book, really about innocence and the very important rites of passages of boyhood. That I think, even if you don't grow up in Waukegan or Northern Illinois. I mean, I don't know where you're from.
Actually, it's funny. I was born in Waukegan.
Oh, wow.
Illinois. Yeah. I didn't know that when I first started reading Bradbury. So, but I live in Iowa right now, but
Iowa. I've driven through Iowa.
Yeah. A lot of people usually just drive through, but Yeah. So when he writes about the small town America, that's the towns I've lived in all my life.
Literally, yeah. You
Yeah.
literally grew up in Greentown, Illinois,
Yep.
or born
Yep.
in Greentown.
I was born. I don't think we lived there very long. When I started becoming aware of life, uh, we had moved to another town, but we were near Chicago area. We were all over that area. So I hope to make it to Waukegan someday, but hasn't
I
happened
love
yet.
I also love Chicago. I've been there as well.
Sure. Yeah. So sorry, rabbit trail, but
top 5. Dandelion Wine, absolutely. The Halloween Tree, for sure. Which it's never mentioned, but I think it's set in Greentown.
yeah, that was always my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I always assumed it's set in Greentown, but it's never said. Of course, Something Wicked. Looking at the bookshelf. Oh, it's very underrated. And I don't think many people like it that much, but Farewell Summer is I'm a big fan of. And of course, and then non-fiction, I really love Zen in the Art of Writing.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one I read as a teenager. And, I was really interested in writing at the time. So I was reading books, like how to write a story and that kind of thing. And I saw that Bradbury had written one. So I thought, well, this is my chance to make it big in the book world. He's going to tell me all the secrets. And, and I loved it though. It kind of threw me for a minute because it wasn't like step-by-step instruction, but it was more of it's more of a, here's what I do, just go and write and don't stop writing and love it. And, chase your dreams and, all that stuff. It was just infectious joy that he has for writing and for life, that I just thought, this is amazing. This is unlike anything I've ever read before.
A really good step-by-step writing book is On Writing by Stephen King.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good as well.
Yeah. I read that one too. Yeah. And I hear people say that a lot, that it's really good. I think, between those two books, you could really get a good handle on writing.
Good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of channel then those things into other creative endeavors that I've done. And even with podcasting, I've really enjoyed it, but it was Bradbury's quote about jumping off the cliff and build your wings on the way down that kind of gave me that push to just do it.
I also live by that quote, mainly because I never outline novels.
Oh, sure.
I just start.
Jump in and go.
Yeah, I have a vague idea where they're headed, but
yeah,
I never really sit down and outline a novel.
Yeah.
Or I haven't for the last couple of, at least the last, I did when I was younger, because that's how you're taught.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the last 3 novels I've written, I haven't.
Speaking of novels, I think we should at least talk a little bit about the book you've written.
Yes, the Halloween book.
Yes, the Halloween book. Otherwise, we'll talk Bradbury all day, I expect. But so tell us a bit about the Halloween book. What was your inspiration to write it, and what's the story that you're telling there?
So the Halloween book is a little novella. There are these 2 characters I write about, Henry Crane and Maya Fox. And I've written stories about Maya and Henry for years. They pop up in a lot of my stuff, sometimes as kids, sometimes as adults. Different points in their lives, they turn up. And in the Halloween book, they adore Halloween, just like I did as a child. And during Halloween of 1992, they have a great night and they trick or treat and things like this. It's because a quick diversion is, I don't know how big. I've seen how big America is on Halloween. England's a bit less. I mean, it's still here. It's not as big. It's not as big over here. The supermarkets and stuff do get decorations and pumpkins and stuff, but it's just not as a big deal over here as it is where you're from. And I've realized there's not really a British Halloween book. So I thought I'd step in.
Yeah.
We don't really have that, like, I mean, Bradbury has the Halloween tree, which, I mean, I read every Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really have a British version of that. So I wanted to create a book that, you know, young kids around Maya and Henry's age would pick up every year and read.
Yeah. And this is a young adult novel, I guess we would call it here in the States. I don't know if they make a distinction in England.
Yeah, young adult. That's
Yeah.
what we call it here too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few people be messaging me asking me, like, is this too scary for a 9-year-old? And I'm like, well, it's not a scary book.
Not scary at all. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not really about horror. It's about Halloween, but it's not about the horror of Halloween, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for that they'd want to read one of your other short stories or collections or something.
Oh yeah, I don't know if they're for 9-year-olds.
Right.
Some of those October season stories are a bit. Ooh.
I'm reading through the October season right now, and the one I read just last night as I was going to bed. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's one of the two boys go into the like the carnival tent. And,
the Spook House.
Yeah, the Spook House. That's it. Yeah.
Spook House, yeah.
I read that right before I went to bed. So, oh my goodness.
There is the genesis of the Halloween book is in the October season. There's a short story called 1928.
Right. Okay. I recognize the title, but I haven't read that one yet. So
if you get to that, you'll see the germ of the Halloween book is in it.
Okay.
So I took that and loved it so much that I had to write it as a bigger novel.
Well, I'm enjoying the short stories very much. Maybe it's just the time of year. It's perfect for this time of year. So.
Oh, thanks.
So as you're writing the Halloween book, I really see it as, I mean, I think there's a lot of tribute to Ray Bradbury in that, and you know that it's almost like I can see his influence, you know, in the story. Definitely.
There was another influence that I didn't quite realize at the time, but Sam Weller, our acquaintance, pointed it out. He said it was very Charles Schulz, very Peanuts, like it's the Grand Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and things like that. I didn't see that influence, but I'm a huge Peanuts fan. I'm wearing Snoopy socks right now, and a Snoopy watch. But
awesome.
Peanuts has always been in the back of my head. I'm always thinking about it, but I didn't think of that connection. But it really does have that children getting together to create something.
Yeah.
But I suppose I should tell you what the book's about.
Oh yeah, a little bit, sure.
So we're digressing.
That's okay.
So Maya and Henry are 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and they enjoy Halloween. And then the next day, which I looked this up, it was a Sunday. So November 1st, 1992 was a Sunday. And they go to church with their families, and pretty much everyone in this little town goes to church. And the Reverend Blair, a big, spiteful, mean man, he wants to do away with Halloween. He wants to ban it in the town. And over the year, over the last of 92 and early 1993, he begins to influence the other adults into agreeing with him. And by June, he announces by June 93, he announces that Halloween has been cancelled, and all the adults agree with him. Henry and Maya are, of course, furious. And so is Henry's grandpa, Ray, obviously, Ray.
Yep.
And they begin the Midnight Pumpkin Society, where they get together with all the kids in town, and they're going to try and save Halloween.
I had to smile when I read, Grandpa Ray, and I'm pretty sure I'm like, I think this might be Bradbury here.
Yeah.
Not so subtle, right? But
yeah, not subtle.
But that's fine. It was a really nice touch, really, really nice touch. And I like to think about these things and what like, what's a lesson I can take away from this book, or what is the message here? And I, as a Ray Bradbury fan, I love that. You could almost look at it, the story, as a metaphor, for imagination, and not giving up your imagination. The kids loved Halloween, and it's such an imaginative holiday. And just to have the stodgy old adults coming along and saying, no more of this nonsense kind of thing, and they want to strike back and say, you know what, this is a good thing, and we need to hold on to it. And I don't know, it was a nice metaphor for me to just remember, like, Bradbury's impact in my life, kind of just in the guise of Halloween here. So yeah, I don't know if you think deep thoughts about what this story is really about, but that's my takeaway from it. I
think you kind of nailed it, but it's also about childhood innocence is such a precious thing that these kids are untouched by debt and jobs and stress and money worries and social classes and all this sort of stuff. That the kids are untouched by this. They're as pure as snow, and like, you need to keep that as long as possible.
Yeah.
And for me, Halloween is that time where kids are at their peak.
My oldest son just started going to college, and so he made that transition of, he had a job and he had money, but nothing really to spend it on, and now he's beginning to understand the responsibilities of being an adult and all that. And he's like, it's not as fun in some ways.
Yeah.
You got those adult responsibilities. Yeah. But yeah, this is just a great story. If you like to read out loud to your kids, I think this would be a great one to read out loud to those younger kids. I used to be able to do that for my kids, read aloud to them, and now they say they're too old for it. So
I read out loud to my cat every night.
There you go. Well,
that sounds crazy, but
no.
I find sometimes you need to read some words that deserve to be read out loud.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of what I do on my podcast. I'll find an old story to read. And so at least you're reading to your cat. I'm just, in the attic reading to myself, reading to a microphone.
That's great.
Yeah. But I love it. And I mean, I think it just is a tremendous help to a child's brain development, and all just increasing their love of stories, I think. But yeah, that's probably another whole podcast episode.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. And again, the Halloween book is available right now, and I believe it's out right now, right?
No, it comes out Halloween. It's about,
it comes out on
pre-order it now.
Okay, so you can pre-order it now. Okay.
Yeah.
And I recommend you pick that up if you want just a cozy Halloween story, a tribute really to that, as Juno said, to that innocence of childhood, and in a celebration of imagination for sure. Well, I like to ask my guests 3 questions, and I think we may have covered a lot of the first one already.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I kind of already knew this was going to happen. So basically this whole episode has been the answer to question 1. Who is your favorite writer and author, or in your favorite book? I guess anything to add to that? No, obviously Bradbury's had a huge influence on your life, but you had mentioned a couple other writers that you've enjoyed.
Oh god, so many. Because I name a few: Hunter Thompson, Neil Gaiman, who is also, by the way, from Portchester.
Okay.
He was born in one flat, and I was born 2 flats down.
Oh wow.
So we on the same little block above some shops, above some stores. So born really close together.
Wow.
Steinbeck is a huge one. Big fan of Steinbeck. Really good of Mice and Men, The Red Pony, The Grapes of Wrath, Travels with Charlie. Who else? John Katzenbach is a big author. He wrote one of my favorite books called The Madman's Tale, which is it's a murder mystery set in a psychiatric hospital.
Oh, wow.
In the 70s. It's a really good book. I recommend it. Really good thriller.
Yeah. I haven't read that one, but yeah.
Stephen King, of course. Big Stephen King fan.
And Stephen King influenced by Ray Bradbury, from what you said. Yeah.
It all comes back to Bradbury.
I think it does. Yeah.
So many authors: Shirley Jackson, Richard Matheson. Oh, so many authors.
Many good ones. Yeah. Again, my favorite, Charles Dickens and Ray Bradbury, and Arthur C. Clarke was another one that, in the science fiction realm, anyway, when I was a teenager, I came across and enjoyed some of his stuff. But
what about Asimov?
Yeah, a little bit.
Quite wordy.
Yeah, I can be very loyal to the things or people that I first find, whether it's a sport team or author. So I found Clarke first, and then later I found Asimov, but his stuff just didn't connect with me like Clarke's did. And there's always, there's often a discussion about, who's the better writer, Clarke or Asimov, and it's got to be Clarke. It's got to be Clarke. I mean, we share a first name. He's my guy. Yeah. In reality, we're just incredibly imaginative writers. So I think what I liked about Clarke is sometimes his books weren't necessarily about anything, in the sense it's like this is just a story of exploration. And I don't know, I guess kind of like that. He did it really well. But what about, let's see, my second question I ask is, and again, we may have covered this, but I'll ask, what was an early experience where you learned that story had power?
I could give you two answers.
Okay.
The one is, of course, Harry Potter. I have really clear memories of being about 8 or 9. So that would have been about 98, about the year after the first Harry Potter book came out. So this is before the films. I have really distinct memories of reading that first book and just loving it and really absorbing all of those details and like picturing that world. It was almost like watching a film in my head, like I wasn't even reading it. I could imagine all these wonderful little details and things in that book. And then the second, of course, which I guess is the gateway for all kids, is R.L. Stein's Goosebumps. Big fan of R.L. I still read them now.
Yeah.
I'll pick one up and read it in an hour or so.
Yeah.
They're like little short stories.
Right.
Not particularly long. Long enough for a bath or something.
Right. Yep. Get in the bathtub, read a book. Yeah.
I remember those. I remember reading a lot of those as a kid and really getting myself creeped out. And I loved going back to that feeling of being creeped out. Like I kept going back for more goosebumps to keep getting that little feeling of excited. Like it's the same feeling I get even now when Halloween comes around. It's like a little spooky, creepy little vibe I get that I don't necessarily get from reading something like, no disrespect to him, but it's not like a downright nasty thing like Stephen King. It still has that whimsical, fun side to it, but it also has that creepy, darker side to it. It's a nice balance between the two.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone has their level of spookiness or kind of scary that they like. And, I've got friends who like the slasher films, and the gorier, the better. And, they're not like secretly serial killers or anything, that they just, they just like that kind.
Yeah.
And that's maybe a little too intense for me. But I like the more spooky or even, thriller kind of thing where it's more of a mental, it's playing with your mind a little bit. And it's more of like your classic ghost story that you see little hints here and there and what could be happening kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I really liked your short story, the Spook House. Um, well, I don't want to spoil it, but the whole thing, I mean, it's just one little scene where he, puts the money in the body, the corpse thing, and yeah, and then how that is comes about in the end. It just
That
oh
short story is based on something that actually happened.
oh okay.
Not to me. I read it in a book years ago. It was basically enough. You can look it up. His name's Elmer McFreedley or something. He was basically
Mhm.
a bank robber who was killed by the police in the 30s. And when he was taken to the mortuary to be embalmed, no one claimed him. And then
Mhm.
over the years, somehow this body traveled around, and the body ended up as a prop in a funhouse.
Mhm.
And they were filming an episode of, I think it was the $6 Million Man in this funhouse. And one of the lighting men came across this dummy and accidentally broke some fingers off it
Mm.
and discovered it was real.
Yeah. Oh
It's a
my.
really cool story. It's called Elmer McFreely or something. I can look it up.
Here, is it McCurdy? Elmer
McCurdy, that's
McCurdy?
the one.
Yeah, I just looked him
Yeah.
up. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's always
Uh,
little nuggets like that that inspire things, little
oh
things that
yeah.
tinker around in your head.
I mean, I've answered this question myself. For me, it's usually around with reading stories that I find out that these things really have power. And I know I sound like a broken record, but it was the Martian Chronicles when I read it. That's like really the first time I remember this wasn't just a story. This had a message to it. This had a power behind it. I don't know. One of these days I'll figure out the words I need to say to describe it, but it was just
Yeah, I have difficulty
oh
describing what Bradbury means to me.
yeah. It's just a remarkable story that blew me away. And I'll often read a book that I think was good, but one of those really deep, powerful, life-changing kind of stories, they don't come around very often that impact you in such a profound way. So all right. And then the final question I like to ask of writers is what kind of advice would you have for any aspiring writers?
Don't don't believe, honestly, don't believe all these people who are like, oh, writing's so difficult, it's hard, I don't know what to do, like these words aren't coming. Like, don't believe any of that. Writing is fun and it's a celebration. Like, you should be so happy writing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're stuck or you can't write or you're struggling to get out a sentence, then move on to something else, try something else.
Yeah.
You should be ecstatic to get home to the typewriter and start writing. You
Yeah.
should be charged and wake up in the morning being like, I'm going to write 4 chapters today and I'm going to love it. It's so important to make sure you have fun doing it and love it as well. Love writing what you write, and don't let people, if you want to write a story about, giant pumpkins eating people, then do that. If you want to write about 16th century nuns in Italy, sure, write about that. If that's what you love, then write it. Don't let anyone else be like, no, you can't write that. Don't listen to them.
Mm.
Write everything you want to write and you will find a home for it.
Yeah, that's been true of I don't know. I mean, a lot of things I've tried in again, including podcasting. They've been part of this group that encourages you to, talk about your passion. And it may not be the topic that gets, 6 million downloads a month or whatever, but if it's something you're passionate about, it's going to have you're going to have a more authentic community around it. And that's, I think, super important when you're, creating like that. Yeah. I meant to ask too, how did you become a writer? What was your journey? And is that something you always wanted to do, or was it kind of a surprise?
I wrote as a kid,
Hmm.
but then I got more into the filmmaking side of things, and I wrote the scripts of the films and things. So I guess that's still writing.
Mm-hmm.
But writing fiction didn't really begin until after Bradbury died.
Mm.
Within a few days, I kind of felt I had to kind of continue for him.
Yeah. I was going to ask, was did that inspire you to hit the typewriter then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can remember when he passed, it was really an emotional kind of day. I was surprised. It's a guy I never met.
But you feel like you have. I feel like
Yeah.
I've met Bradbury.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love talking to people who have, well, I actually got to interview Sam Weller last year. I was doing a Christmas podcast, and for a Halloween episode, I wanted to talk about Halloween instead of Christmas. So I had Sam Weller come on, and we talked about his book and Ray Bradbury and different things. And
oh, I bet that was amazing.
Oh, it was so fun. It was a lot of fun. It was, yeah. So I was going somewhere with that, but yeah. uh, anyway, but yeah, I love talking about Bradbury with him. It's kind of like he met Bradbury and now I met him sort of over the computer. So he was actually Weller was going to come out to our library this last summer to do like a lecture on Bradbury. He had some different places he was going to go on a tour. It was for Bradbury's 100-year anniversary, and but then that all got canceled. So I was looking forward to actually meeting him in person, but unfortunately that hasn't happened yet. But I love it when folks are trying to keep Bradbury, his name, his stories, his work in the public, promoting what he wrote, because it's so good. And I find it's still relevant. There's still a relevant message in his work for us today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. He, I just reread Fahrenheit 451 within the last year. And again, it's like, oh man, there's still a message here for us.
Yeah.
There's still warning. Yeah.
It's a really timeless book.
Yeah. And that's really what I think makes a classic, is that it can handle, the rereads. It can, it keeps current with culture. I know sometimes, well, that might be debated on some books we consider classic, but it's like I can read this today and it's just as relevant as it was, 50, 60 years ago. Yeah. Well, Juno, I just want to thank you for coming on and talking about Bradbury with me, talking about your book. Again, the Halloween book, I'd highly recommend. It's a great story for young adults in your life. And then for yourself, pick up the October season and enjoy some scary stories throughout this Halloween season that we have before us. So, Juno, again, I want to thank you for coming on.
No problem. We had a great time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, keep in touch, and we'll give folks a shout out when you get some new books out and different things. And
I'm working on it.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, you take care, and I hope you have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
So that'll be all for the episode today. One of the things coming up next week, I will be reading a story, The Yellow Wallpaper, and we're going to spend a couple of episodes talking about Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who wrote The Yellow Wallpaper, and I believe I'm going to read another one of her stories later on in the month. I think it's called The Rocking Chair. I'll double check that, but stay tuned for that. In the meantime, reach out to me. Let me know what you're reading. If you could rate and review the podcast, that helps us out tremendously. There are links in the show notes I'd love for you to check out to find Juno's book. I recommend it. Also, you'll want to go to our YouTube channel. I have a video posted there of recommended Halloween reads. It's called Spooktacular Reading Recommendations. In that, I recommend you some books to read on Halloween to help you get into the mood for Halloween. I think they're all available on Kindle or ebook, so you could get those even today or order them online through a couple of links I have posted there. But you might want to check out that video. I have some great choices to read for Halloween this year. And I'm looking forward to reading some spooky short stories for myself on Halloween. All right, so until next week, I hope you are all doing well. I hope you are being kind to each other and that you just keep reading. Take care.